Hi, welcome to a crash course in Wyoming politics. This segment deals with political culture and participation. My name is Jason McConnell. I'm an assistant professor here at the University of Wyoming's School of Politics, Public Affairs, and International Studies. I'm in the College of Arts and Sciences. So here's what political science knows about Wyoming politics. So it turns out Wyoming is the least populous of all states in the Union. As of the last US Census, we've got slightly more than 500,000 people. That being said, we also have the ninth largest land mass of any state. So what that means is we have a relatively small population that's really spread out. Also, to compare Wyoming to other states, it's worth noting Wyoming is vastly more rural than other states. Here I'm referring to what groups like the US Census Bureau use to describe rural parts of the country as compared to metropolitan areas. So coming at it from that angle, nationally, 83% of the population lives in some sort of metro area. In Wyoming, it's only 30%. So that really sets us apart. Coming around to Wyoming's political culture, which is to say the way that our politics and our culture interact with each other, generally the dominant culture here is conservatism. And I use that in two different senses. First, one definition of conservatism is slow to change, slow to adopt new ideas, new ways of doing things. Certainly Wyoming is that, but also Wyoming is conservative in the sense that it's very, very reluctant to increase the scope of government. We see that play out in Wyoming politics in a number of ways, one of which is specifically distrust in federal government, which specifically has been growing for some decades now. For a long time, the University of Wyoming, through its election year survey, has actually been collecting data on trust in government. So I'm not going to read through the graph in front of you, but that being said, you can see from the numbers, Wyomingites tend to trust the Wyoming state government much, much more than they trust our federal government in Washington, D.C. Generally, the school of thought on that is, of course we do, because we know each other. Wyoming is so small that when I teach this class in person, frequently I'll ask my students for a show of hands, how many of you have a relative who works for the state of Wyoming? A lot of hands go up. I'll ask the next question, how many of you know someone personally who's a member of the state government? They're a state representative or a state senator, or perhaps they work in the governor's office. Lots of hands go up. So from that perspective, it makes sense that Wyomingites would trust our own government, our state government, more than the federal government because, well, the state government is us. Now, back to this notion of conservatism. So here's a graph again falling back on Wyoming election year survey data that tracks a number of different topics: capital punishment, gun control, affirmative action, welfare, same-sex marriage, and medical marijuana. That being said, when we ask people what they think about this, you'll notice the colored bars represent those which take some sort of conservative view as compared to those which take a liberal view. Now, whenever Wyoming's politics are portrayed in the national media, very frequently it's some sort of throwaway comment about how conservative our politics are. That crowd in the national media might be shocked to look at a graph like this, where on a number of topics, Wyomingites are actually fairly even-minded. And that gets me to this. So, how do Wyomingites participate in politics compared to our neighbors around us? Well, about 6 out of 10 Wyomingites participate in elections and things like that. Compared to our neighbors, that's more than the citizens of surrounding states like Colorado or perhaps Montana to the north. It's actually also higher than the regional average and the national average. So who gets to participate in Wyoming? That's actually specified as a provision in the Wyoming State Constitution. Article 6 says all United States citizens age 18 or older, regardless of sex, can vote, provided they're neither insane nor convicted of infamous crimes. In the modern era, that last provision, infamous crimes, has been interpreted to mean felonies. So, in Wyoming, if you have a felony conviction for whatever reason, you can no longer vote. So let's turn now to political parties in Wyoming. Turns out, just like the rest of the United States, the two dominant political parties in Wyoming politics are the Republicans and the Democrats. Also similar to national political parties, Wyoming state parties provide some sort of ideological rallying point, and they also provide an indication to voters of what those politicians might do if they actually get elected to office. So Wyoming's political parties also do the same sorts of things that national parties do. They recruit candidates, they provide assistance for campaigns, and they help organize the government once they get elected. So, what do parties actually look like in Wyoming? Well, there are actually more registered Republicans than there are registered Democrats, and yet, if we look at something like gubernatorial elections historically, Wyomingites elect Democrats to be our governor about half the time. So, again, coming back to my comments from a moment ago about how we're portrayed in the national media, even though national news stories may cast Wyoming as being overwhelmingly Republican, overwhelmingly conservative, the actual story is a bit more nuanced than that. That's the end of this segment on political culture and participation. If you'd like to learn more, we'd love to see you in one of our Political Science 1000 classes. That's Introduction to American and Wyoming Government. Also, feel free to pick up our textbook. It's The Equality State, the 9th edition. You can find it in the university store here at UW, or you can find an electronic copy at vitalsource.com. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.